Good morning, all you freedom loving patriots out there. Craig Gibson here with Sons of Liberty, and this is Constitution Coffee and Service. As the weather gets colder and the days get shorter, what better way to wake yourself up in the mornings to get through the week than Black Rifle Coffee's CAF? CAF has a great smoky flavor. It's a medium roast coffee that's marketed at a higher caffeine content. In fact, Black Rifle Coffee CAF has a disclaimer that states, according to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, besides death, a severe caffeine overdose can cause fast and erratic heartbeats, seizures, vomiting, diarrhea, and disorientation. But above all, may just cause awesomeness. CAF is one of the first Black Rifle coffees I've tried and absolutely loved it. And then have tried several others since then that I enjoy as well. If Black Rifle Coffee's CAF is not one that is safe for you to be drinking due to heart conditions or other health related issues, we have a variety of other coffees, both from Black Rifle as well as our Overwatch Coffee Shop line. Ooh, apparently need to drink a little more coffee this morning. Okay, so before we get on to the Constitution, last week we didn't do a video. Part of that is because last week was kind of a rough week for me personally. You guys know I don't tend to get on here and talk about a lot of personal things, but with some things that I've been dealing with for some time, last week was just a really rough week, and the ability to give the Constitution and the 17th Amendment the detail and the respect that it deserves, it just wasn't going to happen. So I felt it was better to just hold off a week, see how I was doing this week, and then come back and give it my best effort. Okay, so I have a quote for you. If men through fear, fraud, or mistake should in terms renounce and give up any essential natural right, the eternal law of reason and the great end of society would absolutely vacate such a renunciation. The right to freedom being the gift of God Almighty, it is not in the power of man to alienate this gift and voluntarily become a slave. Now, this was John Adams back in 1772. We have talked several times throughout 2020 here about people giving up their rights willingly, just giving it up because they were told it was better for them, it was safer for them. Now, here's the problem with that. When our government sees that people are willing to give up certain rights because they're told it's better for their safety, even if you were to get those rights back later on, they were to say, okay, all clear, here's your rights back. What you have just shown them is that you will willingly give up whatever they tell you to if they come up with a story, if they come up with a good reason why you have to give them up. And we've seen this time and time again. We saw this after the 9/11 attacks. We saw this many times since then. We saw it even prior to that. Bill Clinton's assault weapons ban. You know, the assault weapons ban that did very little to actually stop the crime that was going on. It did not put an end to gangs out gunning each other down and hitting innocent bystanders. All it did was made people unsafe. It made the people in general unsafe. Because now, if someone who was a law-abiding citizen wanted to go out and legally purchase what they deem an assault weapon, an AR-15, an AK-47, then they weren't able to do so. Because those were scary, terrifying weapons of war. By that logic, we should ban swords because swords have been used throughout history in war. Um, Bows, arrows, crossbows. For people to claim that we must do away with certain weapons because they are weapons of war is the most ridiculous argument ever. But anyway, 17th Amendment really isn't about that. But I just want you guys to understand, especially with the election coming up, why it is so important to vote your values. Don't vote your party. Don't vote for somebody simply because you don't like the other guy. Look at what they're actually saying. Look at their values. Are they going to stand up for the things that you believe in? For example, are they going to stand up for your constitutional rights? Are they going to stand up for life of humans, born and unborn? Whatever your beliefs are, whatever your values are, vote your values. Because let's face it, when we're faced with two people, a two-party system like we have right now, you're always going to end up voting for the lesser of two evils. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. Now that gets into a whole other topic, but just understand, I'm just really trying to push the fact we need to vote for those who align closer to our beliefs and not based on party. All right, so the 17th Amendment. The Senate of the United States shall be composed of 2 senators from each state, elected by the people for 6 years, and each senator shall have 1 vote. The electors in each state shall have the qualifications requisite for electors of the most numerous branch of the state legislatures. Then it goes on to discuss vacancies. When vacancies happen in the representation of any state in the Senate, the executive authority of such state, so the governor, shall issue writs of election. So they would hold a special election to replace that senator to fill such vacancies. Provided that the legislature of any state may empower the executive thereof to make temporary appointments until the people fill the vacancies by election as the legislature may direct. We've seen when former President Barack Obama was elected president, they had to fill his seat. A lot of times what you'll see is if it's really close to an election anyway, they may temporarily fill that seat until the election. It is illegal to sell those seats, but it is legal for a governor to temporarily fill the vacancy, to hold a special election if person's only been in the first year or even halfway through. It would be a good idea to go ahead and hold a special election to finish out their term and then later continue as normal elections. The amendment shall not be construed as to affect the election or term of any senator chosen before it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. Now, it's funny when we look at a lot of these older amendments in that, where, this is in several of them, that it would, until it becomes valid as part of the Constitution. Now, It talks here about senators being elected for a term of 6 years. I do wish that the founding fathers had taken it a step further and said, a term of 6 years up to 2 terms or, whatever. Like where we have the president who serves 2 terms if reelected. Like, the House, the Senate should be held to the same standards. They should have term limits so that we don't have the kind of mess like we have going on right now in our country where people that have been in office for way too long and have, quite honestly, they blame presidents, whether it was, and don't get me wrong, there's plenty of blame to go around with presidents, but whether they're blaming Ronald Reagan, George H.W. Bush, Bill Clinton, George W., Barack Obama, the current president, Donald Trump, while there is, like I said, plenty of blame to go around with the presidents, these people that have been in office for 20, 30, 40 plus years, like Joe Biden, they are the ones who have created the rules and created the laws that have brought us to the point we're at right now, where our country is just ready to implode because of what they've done. So why would we want to continue to keep them in office? And this is why, I don't know that it's going to happen this year. I don't see that it could happen this year. Not when we're down to less than 3 months left of the year. We need to have that convention of the states. We need to put in the Constitution an amendment limiting the terms of these people in their offices. Because I don't care if it's Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, Chuck Schumer. I don't care. I don't care what party they're with. I don't care what state they're from. None of them should be in office right now. So, hopefully, a lot of you have been checking out. I'll have to put a link on here because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But looking into a convention of the states and those who live in states that have not already done what needs to be done to call this convention, get on the phone with your officials and tell them, we demand a convention of the states because it's time to put an end to this. All right, guys. So I was reading this morning that yet another police officer has been killed in the line of duty, another one injured over in South Carolina. This is becoming way too frequent. And just from my observation, part of the problem we're having is, number one, cops are afraid to do their job now. They're going to be slower on drawing a weapon, which isn't always a bad thing, but when it puts these officers' lives at risk, then it is a very bad thing. Cops are human. Cops will make mistakes. There are bad cops, a small, very small percentage, but there are good cops. There are those who are just out there doing their job, upholding their oath, doing what they said they were going to do. They're going out to serve and to protect. But when we have officers being ambushed, when we have officers being killed in the line of duty, responding to calls, which should just be fairly routine. Now, from what I understand, this was a domestic violence call. Anybody who's not living under a rock and has been alive for more than 10 years would know that domestic violence calls tend to be violent and things can go sideways real quick. But that doesn't excuse it. All these voices out there calling to defund the police, all these voices out there talking about how all of our cops are racist, all these voices out there that want therapists to ride along and to de-escalate. I've got a couple problems with that. Number one, they're not trained in law enforcement. Number two, they are actually going to put those cops' lives in jeopardy because now the officer has to make sure that they're safe, that the psychiatrist, the therapist, whoever it is safe. You know, it's kind of like embedding reporters with military personnel in the middle of a war. Stop. Just stop. Let them go out, let them do their job. That's all I'm going to say on that. But, of course, as always, honoring our men and women in uniform, regardless of what uniform it is, military, fire, EMS, police officers, game wardens, park rangers. They have a job to do, and sometimes they have a really tough job to do. They have no control over how the situation is going to unfold. They have no idea every time what they're responding to. So guys, cut them a little break out there. They may just be having a bad day. You may be having a bad day. Don't let those two bad days come together and cause an incident that never needed to happen. Alright guys, as always, faith, not fear. Fear is a liar, a destroyer of lives. And when you give into the fear, you've given up all hope. Be the kind of American worth the sacrifice that people are making every single day. Alright guys, we will talk to you next week. Until then, y'all have a great week. Stop in, try some coffee. Like I said, we got plenty of other flavors to choose from. And we will talk to you later.